I tell you all the time, like, we have such great people on our team. We're going to be able to talk to each one of them. How many people over here are like school counselors? Just out of curiosity, okay? How many people are district directors? All right, awesome. How many people are principals? Anybody that's a state director? I do want to mention, like, we partner with the International School Counseling Association, which is ASCA. We just had a partnership with them. So if you get your ASCA membership, you also get a discount on Scuda. Just to let you know that. Super awesome thing. For me, just to let y'all know a little bit about how long I've been using Scuda. I've been using Scuda since probably about 2018. And it's really changed my life. I was introduced to Scuda post ramp. And if you've done ramp, you know how much work that is. And I literally met, as they call him, Scuda Steve. Scuda Steve, raise your hand for me, Scuda. There you go, there you go. He's in the front. And so I literally met him like 2 months after I submitted my application. And I was like, where were you when I needed you? And it was one of the best things, though. But now we're getting ready to go through the process again. It's going to be so much fun. So we're almost at time. All right, so we are Scuda, the tool of choice for data-driven school counseling. Welcome, welcome, welcome! ASCA 2022, please make some noise. Welcome! Woo! My name is Diana Virgil. I was a ramp school in 2016 and in 2019, one in Mississippi and the other one in Georgia. One of the biggest things is that I am also a professional practicing school counselor at a high school for 9 through 12. I've also been at every level for pre-K through 12th grade at the same time. And so, I've had experience at each level. I'm in part of the Alabama School Counselor Association. I'm in LBT schools. I'm in the first cohort for the ASCA Certified School Counselor. I'm the very first cohort. So before we get started, how many of you have interns or work at a university? So one of the biggest things is your interns can get this for free. Free. Keyword, free. And one of the biggest things I want you to know is that Scuda University, some quick facts. It's a great tool to introduce interns to get prepared for the counseling field. One of the biggest things that I experienced as an intern when I was going through my program in 2014 to 2015 was that tracking my time was hard when I had to write it down all day. And I'm like, look, I'm not a paper person. I can lose paper. I don't like paper. All my bills come in like emails. So one of the biggest things was being able to track my time was super important. But it has a built-in time log. So how many people may have an intern that they do their program online? Like, and if they do it online, you might have a professor like in Kentucky, and the intern might be in Florida, and then they're trying to get stuff scanned and go back and forth. But it has a time log built in that they can do everything by the click of a button, and they can sign electronically. So you can sign, they can sign. It sends you an email every time somebody signs, so it tells you when stuff is changed. And once it's signed, it's locked in, it's done. And so that's a really great tool to use with your interns to show them how to track their time, so when they leave you and go out to the field, they can actually go in and say, hey, this is what I got on my portfolio. This is how I've been tracking my time. This is how many group lessons I have done before. That's such a great thing to have for an intern when they're going out into the world. Next, managers and faculty are able to see multiple interns at various sites. So you're able to also see all the interns that you have at your school under one umbrella to see, is that site actually doing a lot of direct services for them? Is it not doing direct services? Do all my elementary students being able to get direct services? Such a great thing. We have graphs. Faculty can evaluate effectiveness of each site. And did we mention this free? Did I mention that? Make sure you know that. All right. I eat data for breakfast. Yes. So that's one of my favorite things. I love numbers. I love numbers. And one of the biggest things is that numbers have changed my life, believe it or not. How many people love money? Raise your hand if you love money. Money helps make your life a little bit better, right? Just a little bit, right? So one of the biggest things is that having data makes it better, not only for me as a school counselor, but for my students. Why? It makes me more available to be able to do more things for them. That is so important. I can initiate school counseling programs when I use data. Systematic change. When I tell you I got testing coordinator off of me this school year, I started off and I was at 11 hours and I was like, you see, my direct services went down and I'm servicing for testing, right? And then the next thing you know, they're like, you know what? We could get somebody else to do that. My AP did it. So guess what? I said, I'll be able to put them in a... Yes, that's a hand clap right there, girl. Yes. And so I was able to do that, and that is something that is so powerful. Super excited about that. Program goals, school counseling interventions, and advocacy. I was able to get funding for my program because I was able to show community leaders how I was actually doing all these things for kids and how we needed money so we can continue these things. Those are such great things. I'm able to go into the classroom monthly. And so range from weekly to monthly. Beforehand, my counselor before me, she was never able to go into the classroom because she had so much non-school counseling tasks. I'm at a high school, and I go into my classroom lessons for high school, do classroom lessons for high school every week. Some people are like, how? Yes, I go every week. I can choose whatever classes I want to go to, and I do all kind of lessons with my kids every week. And people are like, how? Because I can show my principal them data and how I am making a change in that. Time to prep my school counseling lessons because guess what? If you don't have time to prep, you can't go in the classroom. And so that was stuff that I was able to do. More one-on-one counseling. So I'm at a small school now, okay? I have 313 kids now. But in my old school, I had 600 kids at one of my schools. And when I was at that school, I knew every kid's name, and I met with them one-on-one. And the reason I was able to do that was because I had many meetings, and I always made sure I met with my kids twice a year. Every kid in that building knows my name, and they have seen me at least twice that school year. Some of them have seen me probably 20 or 50 times. But every kid in that school can say, no, I've been in Ms. Virgil's office in the fall and the spring. And I've been able to do that because of Scuda. Because I'm able to show them my data. I'm able to show them that this is a need. They need to be able to see me. They need to be able to go over stuff. Because sometimes they won't come to you on their own. And I think that's so important. School-wide initiatives and small group. So those are some things that I've been able to do. Small groups have been very important. And Scuda has made that possible for me. Use of time Pareto analysis. My principal loved this, believe it or not. He was like, when I first came up to this, he was like, where you get these pretty charts from? I said, Scuda. And so one of the biggest things is that I'm able to show him how every week, every Monday, he gets a copy of this. And he's able to see where my time was spent last week. One of those times, I had some non-school counseling tests. You see that standardized test prep admin? That was just from watching videos. That wasn't even the prep part. That was just getting the video and training part. And he was like, so you spent 7 hours on that, which was almost a whole work day. I said, yes. He said, but that's not even you doing the boots on ground work yet. And I said, no. He was like, no, we got to change this. Because he was like, what am I going to do if someone decides to cut themselves while you're in the middle of testing? What am I going to do if someone decides to have like a crisis or a kid coming with a black eye, but you got all this testing material that you can't leave unsecured? So, now, I don't agree 100% with this, but that made me the backup test coordinator, but I only got to step in if she go down. and she's OCD, so she's probably not going to go down. But only thing I had to do for the day of testing was line the kids up in ABC order. I would be a team player all day. But I was able to actually have counseling with my other students while my juniors are in there taking the ACT. So therefore, I was able to meet with them more one-on-one that week because the other ones were occupied with testing. I couldn't have did that if I was not, if I was a testing coordinator. So this helped a lot because my principal was able to see. Just that time, he saw that I had 119 hours of email and phone calls. He said, who are you talking to? I said, your parents keep calling me. And nobody ever knew how much a school counselor stays on the phone returning calls and everything. So being able to articulate that, he was able to articulate that to my superintendent, where we end up getting a district registrar, we have a district records clerk now. We have all those things in place that I don't have to do all of that work anymore. So that is a cool thing. But you're probably wondering, how did I get those pretty charts? That's where I'm going to come into my good friend, Lars Zacharakis, that's going to come in and talk about calendars.
Thank you, Diana, who is like our right-hand man. Love working with her and learning from her and being motivated by her. So my name's Laura Zaharakis. I am the now not so unfamous school counselor wife who has needed a tool. About 8 years ago, I worked in a large urban elementary school. I work in the same district in a different elementary school now. I wanted to be able to show my stakeholders, my administrators, parents, teachers, what I do during the day, because nobody really knows what a school counselor does. So my district was trying to collate all that information among our elementary school counselors. We couldn't figure out how to do all those statistics and math, so I went to Scuda Steve, who had a software company, and said, can you make a little program for me? And he did, so here we are. But I have been a school counselor 25 years, mostly in urban districts in Pennsylvania, and I also worked in New York City. I've been on my state SCA board. I earned RAMP in 2020. So we want to show you just real quickly how we capture all this data and this information that you can use to advocate for your program and your students. When you go into Scuda, you're going to set up your own time resolution, meaning like 5-minute intervals, 10-minute intervals. You can look at the calendar in monthly, weekly, and daily views. I usually use weekly. It's very easy to use. I'm going to show you very soon, but it's all drop-down menus aligned with the ASCA national model. We do have state model options. Texas, we have your model on there. You can choose if you want to look at your data compared to the Texas model or the ASCA model. Only the time entered is analyzed. I always say this to new users. Sometimes they get upset if they see white space on their calendar. You are allowed to build relationships and talk to your school nurse about her son's wedding. You are allowed to use the restroom. You are allowed to run out to the car and get something that you forgot. So not every part of your calendar is going to be colored in, and that is okay. We do add a feature a couple years ago where we added definitions to all the tasks and topics to help you be consistent, and there's also an area for confidential notes. So here's a picture of what the monthly view of the calendar looks like. You see I have white space in there. And it's all color coordinated. If you want to stop by our booth later, we can show you what this looks like live. This is the daily view. So the drop-down categories are over here. Definitions hover over. There's a lot of options of what you can input there. The things that have a red asterisk must be completed to capture the data. The other stuff is optional. I know some people use all those other options, some people don't. It's whatever works for you and what your needs are. Again, I just wanted to spotlight there, you're not just finding out how much time you spend doing specific tasks, depending on what fields you populate. You can do a referral source analysis, a focus analysis, and the student group Pareto analysis, which that's a really interesting one. When I was doing RAMP, we ran that. We saw what students demanded the most services from the school counseling office. We proactively, the next school year, met with those kids once a week, whether they had an issue or not, and it helped us service all the kids in a more proactive, setting up for success kind of way. A feature that I use, and I think this is one of the biggest advocacy tools for me in my situation, are tags. So a lot of you may be working in districts where there's inequitable resources among your schools. I use tags to highlight and collect data about specific tasks I'm doing, so I can show administrators what that looks like for me in my school. You enable that in your user profile. What I'm going to show you is I've done it when I've tagged things as behavior specialists. Most of the schools in my district have a behavior specialist. At the beginning of the year, ours did not. I tagged all that so I could show it to my administrator, say, this is how much time I'm doing this role. It was then that he got loud, talked to central admin, we got a behavior specialist a couple days a week. So that's what that looks like. So again, it's one of those fields you don't have to populate, but if you want to capture something specific, you can. I also track donations because I don't have a school community coordinator like other schools in my school district too. So I wanted to show, this is how much time I'm spending coordinating donations for my students. And next up, we're going to hear all about how to use this in a more global level, a larger level than just an individual program.
Hello, everyone. I'm Luana Norfleet, and I am, for the past 6 years, have been the Chief Student Support Officer for a mid-sized district in North Carolina. Prior to that, I served as an elementary school counselor for 15 years. I've also served as the state president of the North Carolina School Counselor Association. So school counseling is where my heart is. Steve and I were trying to figure out how long we've been with Scuda. I want to say it's been 7, 8 years. So one of the things that happened is under new leadership, we had a new superintendent come in, and everybody was on the accountability kick. And so as the district leader for student support services, and specifically for school counseling, we wanted to make sure that we had data also to advocate and support for the role of the school counselor to be specifically targeting school counselor activities and not the inappropriate non-preferred. So I purchased a subscription for all of my school counselors. At the time, we had 58 school counselors. And so initially, what starting with this was getting buy-in from our school counselors. Because many of our school counselors looked at it as, oh, this is something else we have to do. I already have 200 things on my list. Now you're asking me to use my time to enter stuff into this calendar. So we had to backtrack, and we had to say, we've got building administrators, when they're sitting at district meetings, that are saying, I don't know what my school counselor does. And that's a problem. At no point, as a part of our advocacy, did we want anyone, whether it was building level administrators, district level administrators, parents, and unfortunately, sometimes students, to be able to say, I don't know who my school counselor is, and I don't know what they're doing. So we backtracked, and what we did is we looked at possible ways to help our counselors understand that this was a tool to help advocate for who you are and what you should be doing instead of inappropriate tasks. So we started at the groundworks with providing professional development and helping you say, okay, what is it that you're doing in the classrooms? What is it that you're doing with your small groups? And we had to provide consistency across the district, because what was happening is, if we had a counselor who was facilitating a 504 meeting, he or she may have coded that as a parent conference. No, we don't want you to code that as a parent conference. We want it specifically as a 504 meeting, because in some settings where you were spending 70% of your time doing 504 meetings, we know that you were not able to implement a comprehensive program. So we wanted it to be specifically tasked. So what we did is we recognized that everybody is not tech savvy, right? So no offense to the veterans like me, but our newbies that were coming in were all over the place when it came to how to run programs, tech savvy, this, that, whatever. So what we did is we pulled them in, and we had kind of like a small advisory group that were able to kind of create cheat sheets for the rest of us that were not as tech savvy. And that was a part of our professional development. We broke it down even further, where we looked at levels, elementary, middle, and high, because we know that that school counselor role sometimes varies in specific responsibilities. When we were looking at this, we made sure that we were looking at those tasks that were preferred and non-preferred. We made sure that they were in alignment with our district goals, not just for student support services and school counseling, but the specific goals that were set by our executive leadership in how we were moving the district. We also made sure that they were aligned with ASCA, and we aligned them to make sure that we were performing duties and we were able to measure duties that were hopefully in proportion with the recommended ratios. So we kind of talked about this a little bit more. We understood that we had to get the school counselor buy-in to make sure that they understood that was how we advocated for comprehensive programs. We focused mainly, we started big, and now over the 8 years, we are more detailed in our data collection processes. but we just wanted them to see where they were using their time. Many of them did not know. And when we were able to, have that consistency across the district, how we were coding our time, basically through our calendar, and this great program would spit out the information. We had school counselors that were saying, I did not realize that I was spending, 70% of my time on this task. Or I was, coding that I had 12 parent conferences, when in reality, because I was popping in and out unexpectedly sometimes with parents, it was more like 100 parent conferences. So the light bulb came on for many of our school counselors. Were like, whoa, wait a minute. I do need, this information to kind of help advocate what I need to do. It also kind of sparked some of our counselors to start advertising a little bit more about what they were doing in their building to their stakeholders. So they started creating newsletters using this information. They started presenting, at grade level meetings to classroom teachers saying, this is where I'm spending my time. However, I see you're having concerns in this area, whether it be third grade, whether it be ninth grade, whether it be sixth grade. This is where I should be spending my time. And they were using this information. Often we would have classroom teachers that would then turn around and advocate for the school counselor. So it wasn't just the school counselor saying, this is what I need, this is what I need. They had teachers behind them also that began to turn the heads of their administrators, because their administrators were listening to, they were listening to the collective audience, and it wasn't just the school counselor complaining about what they wanted to do for their students. So a part of that also was the needs of assessment. At the district level, what I was able to then do is take that collective information, and I was able to advocate for more positions in some of our higher needs schools where we actually had the data to support. And it wasn't just, Dr. Norfleet saying she wants more counselor positions. So I wanted to share with you kind of a comparative district data, and I specifically chose the school year 1920 because that was what? Pre-COVID, right? COVID just messed up everything for everyone, but I wanted you to be able to see, compared to pre-COVID in the district, the academic year that we just finished, where we had increases in our direct services. We went from 45% pre-COVID to 56% of direct services. That was huge for us. It was also kind of an eye-opener. Since that time, I've gone through 2 superintendents, but it was an eye-opener for the superintendents also to say, wait a minute, what is school counseling doing? This has also helped me be able to advocate more for school counselors and be at the big table where decisions were being made for what was going to happen in regards to student progress, student proficiency, and was able to use this data to say, this is how our student support services department, specifically our school counselors, are assisting in making sure that schools are progressing and students are being successful. This is just our use of time analysis in hours, and again, I did it a comparative where we could see where 9.8% of our time was instruction, classroom lessons, that sort of thing. In 1920, 2021, we dipped a little bit, and I wanted to still show you this information because, again, the impacts of the pandemic, more individuals, because of COVID restrictions, folks being out of the building, we had more hands-on responsibility. It was like every man on the table available. So we did have that dip, but at the same time, I've heard some of the messagings at the conference again. It let me know also that school counselors specifically were more team-oriented, and their staff members knew who they were, what they were capable of doing, and how they could provide additional assistance to students and programming. One of the areas that we looked at is, again, and it's reflected here with our non-school counseling task. The good thing about the state of North Carolina, I think it's about 5 years ago, we passed legislation where it took off testing for all school counselors. Yeah, that was big. So one of our big numbers prior to that was in the non-school counseling task was testing was a part of that. So we've gone up a little bit. Again, I'm gonna think it's more related to COVID, but my goal is to get that number back down where we're not focusing, and we can provide more direct services for students instead of those non-counseling tasks. Okay, again, this is just a comparative again, where we looked at direct services. Again, we were at 45% pre-pandemic. After COVID hit us for this past year, we're up at 56%. Program planning and support, 21%, and that's a big piece of that was the professional development. Very fortunate that through our district, all professional development is coordinated through student support services. So our school counselors are getting specific task-oriented professional development that they can apply quickly within their buildings. So our overall outcomes were the intentional professional development offerings, site advocacy, and it was one of those where we were building school counselors to be more advocates for their work and building their leadership skills. I was able to provide more positions allocated for the district. So at some of our higher need schools, when I looked at their data, that was a part of my advocacy saying we need to get more school counselors in the building. It also gave a lens for school counselors to see where there were holes in their programming where they needed to be more comprehensive. And of course, that would be in alignment with ASCA recommendations. It increased our academic and proficiency with graduation rates because we were more targeted with our direct services. And I think Diana was talking about this earlier in regards to her using the data for RAMP. Because of the use of Scuda, we had 3 schools that have now been ramped, and they could not have done it without the data from Scuda. Okay, so I think next we've got Dr. Parker.
All right, awesome. Hi there, I'm Liz Parker. I am the Director of Student Support and Wellness and School Counseling in Henrico County Public Schools. We are a large school division. We've got about 50,000 students or more. We have about 46 elementary schools, 12 middle schools, 9 high schools, and a ton of specialty centers and programs like most of you. So very large school division with over 200 school counselors between K through 12. So let's talk results, because we talked a lot about different programmatic things, but I want to talk to you about some very specific outcome results that our division has been able to accomplish directly as a result of Scuda. So this is our 3rd year in Henrico County Public Schools utilizing Scuda. So we haven't, I utilized it in my last school division. When I moved school divisions, I definitely brought it over because it was so impactful. So 3 years. All of our school counselors use Scuda. However, with 200 counselors, I needed to ensure that our data was valid. And I knew it would be very overwhelming for 200 counselors to input every single thing that they did. And so what we do here is we do week snapshots each month. So the expectation is that we are doing monthly snapshots of use of time. So we've identified the same week each month that every school counselor in division inputs all of their data and all of their time, and that's made it a little bit more manageable. So our use of Scuda has absolutely resulted in some fist bump worthy celebrations, and then we've also had some mind-blowing revelations, and we'll just quickly go over both. As a result of our use of time analysis at elementary school, we have been able to increase our elementary school counseling staff by 96% over 2 years. So we went from 46 school counselors all the way up to 90 plus that we have right now at elementary school. So every one of our elementary schools has at least 2 full-time school counselors. That was significant, and we would not have been able to do that without Scuda use of time data. I mean, that was a data point that just our school board continued to talk about, our superintendent continued to talk about, and our division leadership team continued to talk about. We also significantly, as a result of adding elementary schools, everybody wants return on investment, right? So in year 2, we were able to go back and show return on investment. And so we were able to show a significant increase in our delivery of direct and indirect school counseling services, and as a result of the increase in staff. And so they were able to see how that funding that they put forth resulted in more students having access and receiving school counseling services. So that was great. And now they expect us to continue doing that every year, which we will, thanks to Scuda. So, also as a result of Scuda, we love to use the use of time Pareto analysis. We use this all the time. This gives such great information. And as a result, at the secondary level, we added 5 additional secondary school counseling positions for the upcoming school year, which has been great. And that has allowed us to pull our division school counselor to student ratio from under 1 to 250. So again, that was a significant fist bump for us in Henrico to be able to say that every school in our county, in our division, has a school counselor to student ratio under 1 to 250. Yep. Could not have done that without this very specific data and data points that we presented. In addition to our fist bump worthy celebrations, Scuda has allowed us, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So we've had a lot of good, and now we'll get into a little bit of the bad and the ugly, which only fuels us further to set some very specific goals as we move forward. So in looking at our use of time analysis, which I look at constantly, I look at bi-monthly. So twice a month, I pull all the data from all of my schools, and then I share it, and we have conversations and discussions about what's going on and why this might be happening. What barriers are you facing, and then how can I support you to remove those? So as a result of this use of time analysis, we saw that our non-counseling activities were significant. This was just one snapshot. I think we got up to almost 18% of use of time as a division in non-counseling activities. That ebbs and flows depending on the time of school year. But we knew that this was a significant concern for us, and we knew we just had to dig a little bit deeper. So we were able to use Scuda data reports and analysis to continue digging deeper to really identify what was going on there. We were able to jump into our Pareto analysis, and I was able to identify that our middle schools were really the ones that were struggling the most in terms of use of time. And so I was able to dig a little deeper and see that, yes, elementary, middle, and high, but out of all of them, our middle schools should really be our primary focus. You can see our middle schools were showing 14%, and that was really one of our highest percentages. So I still needed to dig a little bit deeper to figure out what they were spending their time on, that they were categorizing as these non-counseling activities, so I knew what to target and start chipping away with at the division level. So what I saw when I looked to their specific tasks was that they were spending a significant amount of time in 504 case management and coordination, but also in standardized test preparation and administration. So this gave me 2 very specific tasks that I need to target for the upcoming year. So you can see there that those are my advocacy goals for the 22-23 school year at the division central office level. And then I'm looking to decrease the hours spent completing standardized testing by 25%, as well as decrease the hours spent completing 504 case management by 30%. So 504 case management has been on my radar for a very long time, and this really provided me with some excellent data, so I can speak the language of the real decision makers, and then give them a return on investment once we do make that change. So that's me at the division level. Just wanted to give you some real-time, real outcome data, and now we will talk a little bit about Scuda at the state level.
And I want to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Lee Bagwell. I am from Tennessee. So Dr. Lee from Tennessee, like it just works. I have been an elementary counselor, a middle school counselor, a high school counselor. I've been a district director in 2 different districts, and I also served as the state director of school counseling for the state of Tennessee. I am currently a counselor educator. I'm not sure what else I can do in school counseling because I think I've hit all the marks. But I want to talk to you guys just for a second about Scuda at the state level. Now, do we have any state coordinators in the group? How many of you have a state coordinator? How many of you do not have a state coordinator? And I know we don't have those in every state, okay? How many of you, anybody in the group, state school counseling association officer? Anybody a member of your state school counseling association? Hopefully you got it. All right, so this has got relevance to you because even if you don't have a state director or coordinator of school counseling, your state level counseling association should be a good advocate for you too. And so they can help use this data to advocate for school counselors. So in a nutshell, my work at the state was really about advocacy. And there were 3 main ways that I did advocacy work for the school counselors and the students in Tennessee. So through education, through professional development and through policy development. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how Scuda and the data that Scuda gathers can be a huge lever for change at the state level, which trickles down to district policy, district expectations, and then gets to you at the school level so that you can really make a difference in your students' lives. So in terms of advocacy, one of the things that I had to do was to even get what our state ratios were. When I got to the department, I said, how many school counselors do we have in the state? And they were like, I don't know. Do we need to know that information? I thought, yeah, I think that's a good idea. So what I learned very quickly, and that Dr. Liz gave you a little hint, what is the language that our school and state leaders speak? Data, right? They speak in data. We as counselors, that's not touchy-feely. That's not the story. I'm a storyteller. I love telling stories. But when you're working at a state level in advocacy, we have to speak in data. And so being able to talk about school counselor ratios, being able to talk about how school counselors are using their time, being able to talk about the outcomes for students, it's very powerful. When we look at some of the same charts that you see, I won't go into great detail about this, but we get such important information. In one of the state level reports, we're able to pull out and flesh out what is happening in some of those non-counseling activities. And for one state, we were able to see that they spent collectively 8,000 hours, let me let that sink in, 8,000 hours doing testing and like manual scheduling. That's a lot of hours. That when we go to our state leaders and say, this is what our counselors are doing, but we have all these needs. We have mental health needs, we have behavior issues, we have social media that kids are abusing and not using in productive ways. I can help with that, but I got this 8,000 hour list of things to do. That gets the attention of people who don't fully understand what our work looks like. And so as a state person, or even as a member of your state organization, talking about this, educating those that are in leadership positions to be able to advocate and make people aware that this is what it really looks like is a huge start to making change happen. Another piece that I wanted to talk about is professional development. So I did a lot of professional development in Tennessee to bring our school counselors kind of up to date so that they could meet the expectations that we put out for them. And with Scuda, we're able to break down what are our schools dealing with, right? What are the issues that we're facing? I can have conversations and I can say, I know kids are dealing with a lot of anxiety. Heck, teachers are dealing with a lot of anxiety, right? We've just come out of this crazy pandemic time. You know, they're dealing with being able to connect with each other because we've been in a virtual world where we've connected in a two-dimensional way. So when I can pull that data, I know now what I need to focus on in terms of what is necessary for my school counselors' professional development. And then, again, reach out to partners in education to say, whether it's social workers, whether it's, you know, the medical field or whatever, career folks. We've got a lot of career partners here with us at ASCA, and say this is the kind of information that we need in the schools to help inform and educate our students so that they are prepared to make really healthy, productive decisions for their lives. Thank you guys so much for sticking around and for learning about Scuda, and thank you for what you do for your students.